Morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of MPC Morning Call. Headline really for last night's action. Stocks went back to record highs, basically, as the Whitehouse becomes white noise. Trump threw yet another tariff tantrum overnight. I think he put tariffs on. It was above a dozen. I did, for those of you who follow me on Twitter, I actually sort of predicted it'd be 4 BRICS nations and a couple of mid-tier Asian nations, and I was pretty much bang on. He ended up threatening 2 BRICS members, 4 BRICS partners, and then he particularly about 3 or 4 of the mid-tier Asian countries like the Philippines, say, similar size to around about that, Vietnam and things like that. Brazil was the big loser, 50%, which is really aimed at steel. Which was another prediction I sort of made as well. It is getting extraordinarily predictable, and you just watching the press conferences every morning on Bloomberg. It really, I can understand why the market has really made it white noise at this stage. So Dow, S&P, Nasdaq, Russell, all up. Interestingly, Nvidia got to a first company to ever reach $4 trillion in market cap. I'll have to admit, in the early days, I was very wrong about this stock, but we have bought it at various stages back in April, around the 75 to 80 mark, actually. And but yeah, and it's obviously around about the $160 mark at the moment. And I think they're selling quite a few of their new chips, and that that fear of what happened to Cisco back in the early 2000s in the tech bubble. It's a much more resilient business model, and I very much changed my mind over time. Which instead of digging my heels in, it's always good just to admit you're wrong, particularly when when the evidence suggests that it was a much better, a much more resilient business model. So as you can see there, Nvidia up on the heat map, nearly everything's green. There's patches that are essentially mildly red, but there's no key theme really. To be honest, it's mainly the Mag 7, so that it'd just be passive index buying. It is holidays over there, and that's why July is seasonally a fairly strong month overall. Interestingly, Amazon's up though 1.45. The initial data out of the Amazon Prime Day event, which is now a 4-day event, basically there is rumours around that it's possibly down 40% on the previous year, and the initial numbers haven't been great, so they are sort of anecdotal at this stage. Early on, it was only down 14%, but obviously this now being a 4-day event, not a 1-day event, I think it depends on how they want to chop this up, as whether it's total sales or people don't feel pressed, etc. Look, I'm sure they'll change because there was huge demand, and that's why they extended it. We'll just see how that goes. Federal Reserve's remaining cautious, wait and see approach, basically because the White House is just an erratic, circus at the moment. Everyone's been threatened, and then Trump's also given weapons back to the Ukraine, or said he's going to give weapons back to the Ukraine. And he said he didn't, then he said he did, and then he said there wasn't a decision made, and then if there was one, he would have to make it. Anyway, Russia just sent the record amount of drones at the Ukraine last night. So look, it's that continues to go on. I think it's a little bit laughable that he has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, considering he's effectively started, inflamed a couple of conflicts since he's been in power. So iron ore was up yesterday, and lithium as well. Obviously, copper chilled out a little bit, but still up about 7.5% for the week. Platinum seems to be leveling out as well. Nothing really in the commodities area. Coal's still is having a decent run. I would expect with that copper tariff, Rio's probably not a bad buy. With obviously it's 55% iron ore, but with iron ore prices heading higher, and that the second biggest operation in the US for copper mining and copper smelting, that Rio will probably benefit very significantly in that copper spike. In terms of obviously that's next week, and that's what we've got to look forward to. Doing a bit of research so far. Obviously, there's been a lot of passive inflows, so BlackRock should do well. Wells Fargo looks relatively cheap. And yesterday, actually, speaking of Chinese numbers, there was some deflationary numbers out of China. So economy not really picking up too much there. However, commodities did drift a little bit higher. So don't expect too much from today overall, and we will speak tomorrow morning. General advice warning. The content presented in this presentation is intended for informational purposes only and provides general advice only. It does not take into account your personal objectives, financial situation, or specific needs. This information should not be the sole resource when making investment decisions. We strongly recommend you seek the advice of a financial professional.